Are you a parent navigating the complexities of co-parenting, family court, or even domestic violence? If you are looking for ways to help protect your children and build a strong and supportive community around you, then look no further. Gray Minds Think Alike is your go-to resource for everything related to the complexities of family life. Join us as we dive into thoughtful conversations with experts and explore practical tips and strategies for tackling the challenges of parenthood in the throes of adversity so that no parent feels alone and every child's safety is protected. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Gray Minds Think Alike. I'm your host, Ali Kessler, and this is where we dive deep into the conversations that matter most with experts who enlighten, inspire, and empower. Today, I'm joined by someone who's redefining what success and healing feels like from the inside out. Nicole Hernandez is a board-certified hypnotist, success coach, and human design advisor from New York City who helps individuals turn their energy or anxiety into their edge through her signature high-frequency success approach, which combines modern hypnotherapy, mindfulness, somatics, and her innate gift. Known as the traveling hypnotist, Nicole is also an anxiety educator, speaker, and resident healer for the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown New York. Nicole specializes in helping anxious high achievers become impactful, conscious leaders that can navigate life transitions with a sense of clarity and ease. After healing her own anxiety-related issues with hypnosis, she felt a deep calling to demystify the stigma and help others. She has been featured in Cosmopolitan, Best Life, Forbes, Success, and the Wall Street Journal. And now she's here today to share how healing through hypnosis rewires the root patterns that keep you stuck so you can lead, love, and live with more clarity and confidence. All right. So hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, Ali. How are you? Good to be
I'm
here.
good. Thanks for joining us today and talking with us. This is a very enlightening topic and conversation, and one that I actually don't know much about. So I'm excited myself in learning more, and our listeners will be as well.
Great. Where should I start with everything? Would you like?
Well, just start with who you are and I guess how you got into this.
Yeah. So my journey really starts with understanding what it's like to be a high achiever, what it's like to be a professional. So I was working as a VP in a PR agency back in 2016. I'd done this Tony Robbins event, walked over the coals and everything. And I had made this goal to step it up in my career. So I took this position, even though I had this deep feeling that this probably wasn't right for me. There's something just internal that was saying, no, don't do it. But as many of us do, we go for the money, we go for the title bump, and we keep going on our career. And during that time, I started having awful panic attacks and thought it was just related to the work environment, that high stress, some of the toxic behaviors at that agency. And then I ended up leaving, starting my own company in marketing at that time, and things got worse. So I encountered not only more panic attacks, but I started having gastritis or gastric issues and alopecia. So my mom, I was actually home in Dallas visiting my mother, packing up my suitcase, going back to New York, and she saw this big bald spot on the back of my head. I had no idea it was even there. And she screamed when she saw it, which of course made me nervous. And so it was just started to become all of these thoughts and all of the anxiety started to really manifest as an illness in my body, as my body was just trying to work with me. It was just trying to help me navigate through this time and signal to me that something really needed to change. And I think you might know this from experience yourself, but it's really strange when you have those experiences of realizing just how powerful your thoughts and your beliefs are and how just those things can begin to create illness in your body or manifest as these struggles that we go through.
I know that 1000%. Since my son passed away, I literally have had the weirdest ailments that I didn't even know existed. Anyway, I digress. Go on.
But it's just mind-boggling. And the thing is that you start to realize that something really needs to change. And we can look to doctors. Of course, I went to a doctor and saw acupuncturist and all the things. But what has to start changing is the way that we think, our belief systems, and how we're navigating through the world. And when we change those things, it does allow us to navigate through the world easier. Now, I had tried a lot of things, Xanax, prescriptions, as I mentioned, acupuncture, and I would say some of that was really helpful to me. Someone had mentioned to me along the way to try hypnosis. And on a day when I honestly thought that I should probably go to the hospital, I took a walk by the water and I just sat down in meditation, and I had this little kind of voice that came into my head and said, go try hypnosis. So I went home, listened to a YouTube. It was on hypnosis for your stomach pain. I listened to that, and it wasn't like it made things disappear, which I think people often think that if they do hypnosis, that it's just going to take away everything in just one moment in that one session. It's more about training your brain and retraining the way we think. So over the course of, I would say, 6 weeks, I listened to this hypnosis daily, and then started to just, obviously, I was paring back my caffeine intake and just some of the things that I knew were overstimulating my nervous system. And my hair started to grow back, and I started to feel okay. And then I got really interested in why hypnosis worked when nothing else would work. And I went in to study it. And then I had even more breakthroughs through studying it and learning about it. And I had this pivotal moment probably in the last few days of our hypnosis training where I just broke down in tears for 2 hours and just moved through some childhood trauma, things that I thought I'd just moved beyond and I hadn't. And that was the breakthrough for me. I have not had a panic attack since then, and that was 2019.
So you believe that breaking through childhood trauma or things from your past contribute to today's anxiety in general?
Absolutely. Because when we hold on to these things, a way that we see the world or a specific identity about ourselves, if we hold so tightly to that, it doesn't allow us to be able to shift in our perspective. And sometimes it's that shift in perspective that allows everything for us to change. It's whether we perceive something as a threat or not. And when we no longer perceive that thing as a threat, then it changes everything.
How does that work in instances when trauma is tragedy related?
Yeah. I think for many people, they do have that experience. And at some point, we want to come on the other side of it and say, I went through this and this was difficult. And it's that shift of it was difficult, it was hard, and I also moved through it. So it's having that awareness of I've moved through it now. That doesn't take away from the past and what I experienced, but I now have resilience that I didn't have before. Whether you wanted to really build that resilience up or not, it might be a different way to look at that. And for everyone, that's going to be a little different. Their specific way of looking at that tragedy is going to be a bit different for them. So for me to just say, it's because you feel resilient now, but your unconscious will know exactly what you need.
Okay. So let's, I guess, just identify what exactly hypnosis is for everyone we understand, because I know that there is common misconceptions and we see things on TV and whatnot, but let's hear what it is exactly and what it does to your brain.
Yeah. So I think what's really important to know is that what we've understood hypnosis to be through TV, through shows like the movie, I think it's called Get Out, where the woman's stirring the tea and the guy goes into this oblivion somewhere. We're not quite sure what's going on during the movie.
Or like magic.
Right. That's a very Hollywood version of hypnosis. The true hypnosis is very much more like a visualization or more like meditation. In fact, we are all moving in and out of hypnosis every single day. It's just a natural trance state that we go in and out of where we can focus in, like just imagine like when you're daydreaming, you can focus in for that moment and tune everything else out. Like when you're watching a great movie, for example, you're in a state of hypnosis. When you are watching something on social media, scrolling, you're in that state of hypnosis. You can tune everything else out. Your dog can be barking, siren can be going by, and you can tune it out. That doesn't mean that you're not aware of it, but you're just choosing at that moment. Now, within this kind of meditation or visualization, you are imagining just like you would in a daydream, maybe with your eyes closed, and you're the star of that movie or of that show, for example. And in that state, your mind is learning how to look at life differently, how to consider your past differently, or maybe take away some of the wisdom or the things that maybe you didn't see at that time to bring some healing and some compassion into moments in your life that you might have needed it. So it's much more graceful and soulful and elegant than I think anyone maybe suspects when they first think about hypnosis or consider hypnotherapy.
So it is a lot like meditation and getting yourself into that state of mind where you're not distracted and whatnot. So during this process, what happens to someone? How does it work? Like, how do you begin? What is it? What does that mean? They come to you, they close your eyes, and then you walk them through maybe some sort of visualization?
Yeah. So the way I would do it is we would start by having a conversation about specifically what they're looking to change. And we know that with talk therapy, you've got the results show, I think it takes 600 sessions for you to see really the success of it versus with hypnotherapy, it's really 6 sessions. You've got a 93% increase of success. So things happen for people very quickly. Now, I'd say that with the caveat that's based off research, not just my own experience or my thought process behind that. With that, I would have a conversation about what we're thinking of changing and what we're looking to change, what they really desire to change. Because sometimes people will come and say, I want to stop eating sugar. And then I'll look at them and say, but do you really desire to stop eating sugar? Like you never want to have sugar ever again? No. Okay. You have to really want that change, whatever it is for you. And then we can design the whole hypnosis around your beliefs and around the change that needs to happen for you. So the way I start it is it does look like a progressive relaxation, for example. It might look like imagining a wave moving through your body, relaxing your whole body. So we move into this state of we're moving from beta, which is like this waking state, to alpha, more of a meditative state, to theta, where your really unconscious is open and available. We're kind of move aside our critical factors. So we're in a place where we can be in our imagination. And we like to say that imagination is the medicine of the mind. And in that space, you can begin to move through maybe your own story in many ways, like your own movie, and you're being guided through it by me. But ultimately, everything that's happening is your own mind constructing this world. And my whole goal is to use the language of hypnosis and change to help you move through that. So by the end, you do feel a felt sense of something has shifted inside. Now, again, I don't expect for you to have a full transformation in one session. I do expect that within 6 to 12 sessions, you will see a significant change in your life in the way that you're behaving and the way that you're thinking about things.
And in the perception, I suppose, as well.
Exactly.
Right. I used to study this Stephen Covey, the 90-10 principle, where he talks about everything's about perception and how you perceive things. So it's very interesting. Now, who's the ideal candidate? Is it for everyone? Can anyone be hypnotized?
I would say it's definitely easier for some rather than some. The people that I see do best with hypnosis are usually really creative. Like they're already creative. They already love to read books. They love to write. They love to watch movies. They're naturally maybe even already imagining worst case scenarios in their mind. So we want to take what they naturally do and reverse it.
Right.
Those are the best candidates. I would say the people that have the hardest time with it would be people that have a hard time imagining things. They have a hard time
or believing in it, that it could work.
Believing in it.
That's like the ones that have their open mind probably, it works better for.
Exactly. And then they probably wouldn't want to pay for a session anyway.
Look, I would try anything once. Really, because I'm all about, I want to feel better. If I'm here, I want to be at my best.
Right.
So I will try anything once. And if I believe that I'm doing something and I actually see change or whatever, I'm going to want to keep doing it.
You're a perfect.
Okay. So I guess what's the difference between hypnosis then and like hypnotherapy? Is it just the action of doing it?
Yeah. The therapy component is really about hypnosis that's designed towards a positive change. And hypnosis is just basically the construct of the way you move through it. So hypnosis obviously can be used for stage shows and entertainment. But when we add the therapy aspect to it, we know that it's about change. I also just say clinical hypnosis because in some states, you're not allowed to use the word therapy.
Oh, interesting. So I know that you're a board certified hypnotist and you work with sleeps. Does hypnosis also help with sleeping better and I guess just relaxing your whole body throughout the day so you can have less anxiety, like you said, but also sleep?
Yes. So because you're naturally moving from the beta state to then the alpha and theta, you're naturally being drawn into a state of that sleep. In fact, I would say that's where we do the most of the work is right that stage right before you fall asleep. So imagine like when you're in bed and maybe you're talking to your husband or someone that's there with you and you're in that quiet moment where you're about to fall asleep. that's in the stage that we're in. And people will naturally fall into sleep very easily.
Wow.
The hypnosis now, when I'm having those moments where I can't sleep, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll just pop on my headphones, listen to hypnosis, and I'm out even before 5 minutes up.
Wow. Do you teach people tools for them to do when they're in bed at that moment? I have insomnia. I've tried everything. Nothing works.
My goodness. Yes, you should definitely listen to hypnosis if you haven't already, Ali. That would be a really great way to start. There's so many online. I have some on my podcast, The Traveling Hypnotist, as well as on YouTube. And that's just a really great way to get started with it. I think it's also helpful to start with one person so you can hear their voice and become comfortable with their voice. And that becomes almost like a conditioned response. Think of like Pavlov's dog, right? So we have the conditioning of when I hear this voice, I begin to relax and I begin to allow my mind to soften. And then a lot of the language that we're using within hypnosis is about, especially around sleep, is telling your unconscious. It's using metaphor, symbolism to help you move into that state of sleep where you feel relaxed.
Relaxed. Yeah. I'm definitely going to try it because like I said, I've tried everything and I'm like, melatonin doesn't work. Ambien doesn't work. These things do not work because when my brain wants to work, in overtime, it will, regardless.
Absolutely.
Okay. Besides, I guess, anxiety, what other, you said you do deal with success to help people become better speakers or be able to do entrepreneurial work and whatnot. What other types, I guess, ailments or something would hypnosis work for?
Yeah. I mean, I've worked on the full gamut of it. I would say the sessions that I think I help best with are really in the vein of people that are suffering from social anxiety and have maybe a hard time networking, or they feel really anxious before they are on stage or before they're on video like this.
Right.
That this can really help someone that would like to be more visible, and we want to understand those fears. And maybe there's something that happened when you were a kid. Maybe you were made fun of, or maybe you saw even a friend being made fun of and then you shut it down. It's not safe for me to be seen. So I do help a lot of business people and entrepreneurs in that vein. Just people that also are working through relationships, maybe relationships that were unhealthy in the past and they don't want to repeat that cycle. So I use a couple of different tools, both human design, which we'll talk about hopefully in a bit, and then hypnosis to help people really understand how they can navigate through relationships. And again, it's about conditioning better patterns, because if we grew up in households where we didn't see great patterns, or maybe we spent a lot of time watching daytime TV or these shows that make us think that love is supposed to be the highs and lows, and we never really grasped what true love is supposed to look like or what healthy love looks like. And we're going after something that's just not right for us. So again, it's changing our beliefs, perceptions, and the ideal of what we're looking for in a relationship.
Right. Well, a lot of my listeners are people that are dealing with, I guess, different types of relationships where they're going through divorce or domestic violence or things that would probably cause blockage every way, from career to just social and life. Most of them are parents. And I believe that every one of these people would probably benefit from learning tools and techniques on how to deal with different types of relationships and different types of issues in conflict.
Right. And I just helped a woman who was in a relationship with someone who she thought was great. And then during the relationship realized that things were very different than she anticipated. And for her, it was really coming back to redefine her self-worth, because I think so many times when we're in relationships that might be abusive or critical, we forget who we are. We actually believe it's like we're being conditioned by the things that we're hearing about ourselves. And we believe that. And it's so not true. And we've got to take back our power from the ex or that person. And
yeah, 1,000%. Most people that are living with domestic violence, if they survivors, they have lost their sense of self. They have lost their security. They have lost their finances. They have lost their children. They have suffered great loss. So I hope that maybe someone out there would try hypnosis and sort of, at least, like I said, get the tools so that they can deal with the challenges that they're faced with. So I'm excited. So one of the things that you also do, we were talking about the human design. Can you just tell us what that is exactly?
Yes. So it's interesting. I found it interesting that along my path, I've been skeptical about the things that actually I ended up really loving and owning and have been really pivotal in my life. So I was very skeptical about hypnosis to start with. Human design was another one of those things that I was just like, I don't know. This just seems like another personality test, like fun personality test. So human design is a combination of astrology or Eastern astrology, Western astrology, and the Kabbalic tree of life and the chakra system. So think about multiple kind of ancient modalities coming together and being cross-referenced. That's the best way to think about it. And so if you're familiar with the Enneagram or any kind of other personality or self-development test, it's really about understanding ultimately who you are and defining your personal brand and really taking ownership of that. And that's what I feel like human design really does. It helps you not only know who you are, but how you best work and how to do it in a way where things aren't so hard, where you're not trying to fit the mold of what everybody tells you should be. And you can actually get back to listening to yourself in a very intuitive way. And it was brought to my attention during 2019. And it wasn't until the last few years when I had a business coach personally who was using human design in her business. And I thought, it's working for her. So maybe there's something to look at here that's beyond just the superficial. And I started really getting into it and understanding it better and moving into the nuances of it. And Ali, I have to say, it's been one of the things that's helped me really to own my talents in a way that just feels so right for me. So even in my human design chart, which we can pull yours up so we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it just helps me own my personal brand because I see there's the marketing aspect, which I've done for years. And then there's also just a full channel of related to this kind of emotional intelligence.
So it's all guided from the stars, so to speak?
It's guided from the stars. It's guided from the collective energy, you would say. So It is a very soulful way of looking at it. And to be really honest, that's the hardest part I had with it was like, so it's according to the stars?
So it's been the same since I was born. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Look, I'm a believer in all of it. I've had psychic readings since my son passed away to see if I can speak to him. I'm a believer. Okay. So I did my chart ahead of time and I sent it to you. I have no idea what I'm looking at. So if you want to just explain what I'm looking at.
So this is a human design body graph. That's what this is called. And so right here, you can see what would resemble the chakra system. You might be familiar with the head, what we call the ajna, or this kind of center here, which is related to our beliefs and the way we perceive and process. This is considered your throat center. Not surprised that's fully colored in. You see how that has a color? Mm-hmm. It means it's a consistent energy for you to have that that ability to communicate.
So that's been there since I was born?
Since you were born. Now, I also have a solid throat center as well, but because I was bullied as a child, I was in the low frequency of that channel. I hadn't really fully owned it. And so this is another place where I like to go in with people because this gives us a framework to really look at where they are owning their talents and maybe where they've been disempowered and we can take back their power.
Okay. So you can change, this can change even though this is what we're born with.
It's not going to change, but we can see where you aren't actually fully living up to your potential.
So you can understand it. Okay. Got it.
This is going to be your G center or kind of your sense of direction. You have right here, this is like an ego open heart center. This is your emotional center, your solar plexus, your sacral center. So your creative center and your splenic center. So about instinct and just that instant knowing. And then your root center down here. So think about pressure center. So your head and your tail or your head and your root are the pressure centers and they're both open for you. So I'm curious, when you said you can't sleep, do you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you to get things done? Like a pressure?
I think I always have that sort of anxiety, but I also, because I have so much trauma, my mind doesn't stop. And sometimes I have intrusive thoughts that I can't control. And I think about just very negative things that I don't want to think about. And for me, that's the hardest. So I just tune myself out with TV and reality TV and just so I can stop thinking. But sleeping is difficult. I also have nightmares. So it's almost like my body doesn't even want to go to sleep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So now I'm curious on this chart. what does the red filled in lines mean opposed to the not filled in lines?
Okay. So let's look at you see how on this whole side, on the right-hand side, it says personality. And then there's all these numbers here on that side. Okay. So where you see that, these are all, you think about your talents or your gifts. I like to call them your gifts, but they're called your gates. So think about all these are potential gifts for you. There are also places where we could be living in the shadow of our gifts. This is all what happened when you were born. So all of these gifts came in, or that was the energy at that time. And
was I gifted?
You're gifted. And then on the left side, the design side, these are considered the gifts that came into being when your soul entered your body. So it's believed that your soul enters your body 3 months in advance.
Wow.
Of your birth.
Birth. Okay.
Yeah.
So while you're in the womb.
While you're in the womb. Yeah. And I have done past life regression for some clients. I do it on a specialty basis because I think you do need to be familiar with hypnosis and be comfortable with it. But it's interesting. Some people do have experiences of being in the womb.
Wow. What about afterlife? Do you do anything with that?
Yes, because through the session, you would ultimately see how you perished, how you died in that lifetime. So you would get some wisdom from that.
Okay.
And so anyway, so this is where we're looking at these two sides. That's where you see the colored. So you see these little channels and you see some of them are pink and some of them are orange. And that's just based off of what side that gift is coming from.
Okay.
And so you have like right here in the middle of this chart, you have where it's orange and pink, but there's a full channel that's colored in. That means that's like a superpower for you there.
Okay. So what are my superpowers?
Okay. So I'm going to just tell you a couple of things here because we could literally spend days going through this entire chart. And that's why I like to start with kind of a basic reading and then we move into more advanced levels. But let's look at a few things. So number one, you are a generator. So there's 5 types within human design, generator being one. How do we know that? You have that filled in sacral center. So that creativity. There's 2 of the 5 types are generators, a manifesting generator and then a generator. And these are about 70% or so of the population. We're the doers. We're the ones that create. We do things, we get shit done. That is who we are.
I've always been like that.
Yes. And so I think that's why we have such a productive population. We're just like so focused on how do we be more productive and how do we squeeze every minute out of the day.
And why our mind doesn't stop running.
Right. So that's one of the things you should know. But for a generator, this is your sacral center. So it's really important for you to tune into things that do give you satisfaction, that do give you joy. So for example, producing this podcast might give you a lot of joy and fulfillment, and it probably continues to fuel you to move forward at it. You feel like it gets giving to others from it, right? And so you get that sense of satisfaction. It's almost recharging you as you do it, even though there are certainly days when it probably feels harder than others. But at the end of it, you're like, yes, this is good and I enjoy it. And so we get that steam essentially to keep going with things. And now that there's a lot of people that are doing things in the day to day that don't excite them. Maybe they're doing things to make other people happy. There's a ton of people that took on a career that they did not want to be in because of their parents, because their parents said, you must do this. We expect this of you. And then
you should be a doctor, a lawyer.
Exactly. You also have what we'll call it's the 2-4 profile. And this is really interesting. I love this because you're doing what you're doing. And then because I know you're all about this. So you see how it says 61.2 up here at this top, on this top right. And it says 32.4. So that decimal point and the 2, that makes up this first point here in your profile. And that 32.4, that makes up the second number. Now the 2-4 is really interesting because the 2 has it's called the hermit, which I hate that name, but it's the piece of you that needs to be a little introverted. It's like the piece of you that just wants to be in your creativity, the piece of you that, just needs to do their thing and not be bothered by the world. The 4 is all about community. The 4 thrives in community, is a community builder. And so there's a bit of a duality here. It's like the introvert extrovert here, but to really step into that as your profile, as like the role that you play here on earth is really important for you, Ali. And I can already see how you've already started to step into that with everything that you've been creating and all the ways that you've been reaching other parents and really supporting others. So I love that you're already in this 2-4 vein of yours. And I'm curious if that's been part of you, if you've felt like that sense of community building throughout your entire life, or if it's been more in these last few years.
Yeah, I don't know. I never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing now, and I don't get paid for it. So I still do have a career. So it's dueling both. I've always been in a leadership role or outspoken, or I've always had a voice and I've always used it. That's for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I had a lot of different things growing up that a lot of people probably couldn't have dealt with. I moved back and forth from house to house, from parent to parent to state my entire life. So I've always been thrown into some sort of adversity.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's so interesting. Okay. And are you okay with me sharing just a couple more things for your
Yeah, you can say anything. I am curious to know what the frustration and satisfaction mean.
Oh, okay. So frustration and satisfaction are related to, so we call it signature and your not self. So your signature, according to your type, is to be in satisfaction. And that's related to that sacral energy, right? That I'm doing what makes me feel good, what brings me joy, what refuels me. And so it's really important to look at, when are you not in your satisfaction? How would you know that? The compass is the way that you feel. When do you feel really frustrated? And we can look at our entire week. We could look at the month and say, let me write down all the ways that I'm really frustrated. Are those actually things that you can change? Is it about having somebody help you in your house, for example? Are there certain people in your life that no matter what you do, you just can't seem to relate to? How do we begin to change some of those things so that we can live more in satisfaction? And of course, there are things that we have to do just as on a day-to-day. I really hate doing laundry, folding laundry. It's one of the things that I hate doing. It has to get done. And I do feel more satisfaction when I listen to music, like I listen to my headphones or listen to a podcast while I'm folding. Okay, that makes it bearable for me. I can be in a bit of a satisfaction. So there's just ways that we can begin to layer on these like simple little things that make our lives a little bit easier.
Okay, got it. So it's about turning some of your frustration into satisfaction.
Yes, or getting rid of those things that really frustrate you. Now, when we look at, so I wanted to just point out a couple of your gates, some of the things that I think are most important. So in your sun sign in human design, you have the gate of mystery.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because this gate is really interested in people. It's interested in the world. It's asks a lot of questions. It wants to know why things happen. It's concerned with psychology and why people do the things they do, or with the kind of the greater life. As you said, you mentioned afterlife or what happens beyond this. So in the high frequency, it's very curious about life. And you're asking a lot of questions right now. And that's great. That's part of this gift. In the low frequency, it gets stuck in very much overthinking or trying to solve the mysteries of life that we can't actually solve. And so there's ways we can be in the high frequency or the low frequency of this gate. So that's your highest energy. We also look here on the sun sign related to your unconscious. That's the 32. It's the gate of continuity. So like, how do we endure? How do we keep things moving? And it's interesting because I know that you're fighting for reform and ways to change, but this really asks the question, like, what is not working here? And how do we make it better? Like what can and cannot be transformed here? What's
Right.
not working? And how do we move beyond this? How do we change this? And so this is very much like it's like a radiant energy that's within you of looking to move things along.
Okay.
To evolve them.
So do you think I was destined from birth to have suffered tragedy in order to help others?
I don't know. Again, that would be a mystery, right? We're never going to know that for sure, one way or another. Do we all get different lessons in our lives? Of course. And do I know whether what happened to your son is what led you to fulfilling your purpose? There's no way to know that. And I think these things probably have showed up in your lives in different ways along the way. Like, for example, one of the clients I had recently who had the gate of mystery, she mentioned that she loves like true crime and she loves those types of podcasts and like mystery books. That's one way that it shows up in her life. So it doesn't have to be that we have to suffer to have these gifts. It's just, these are the kind of energies that we're constantly just moving through.
Interesting. It's all fascinating to know that all of this you can tell just from looking at this funny little person.
Yeah. And so we go into much more depth within a session, but this is one of the ways that we start. So within my high frequency method, I like to either start here with hypnosis. That's kind of the two entry points of how do we begin to know who you are? How do you take back your power from the past, from people, recultivate your sense of worth, and really start to own who you are and your full potential in this lifetime. So I'm going to stop sharing that.
That's all so fascinating. Like I said, I'm really intrigued by things like this because it's just, people just are ignorant. We just don't know. We just don't know enough to understand it thoroughly. It's fascinating. I find all of it fascinating.
I do.
So I'm hoping that people listen to this and then actually want to see how they can break through their blocks and go to the root cause of their issues, which I'm a firm believer in.
Absolutely.
So I guess what kind of like subconscious patterns or success blocks do you see most often in high achievers or entrepreneurs, and how do you help them shift it?
Yeah, I think for a lot of high achievers, they get so stuck in the overdoing that they need to be productive all the time or need to be turned on the time. And their self-worth gets so tied into the doing and afraid almost at times to say no because they feel like that's going to block them from their next level of success. But we have to also understand that's not truly correct in all the ways. And certainly we have to prove we have a skill set as we come up through our ranks, but you also recognize you have a lot of wisdom at some point from all that you've moved through. And that's valuable. So sometimes it's not about doing, sometimes it's about guiding.
Now, when you're under hypnosis, are you coherent?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can speak freely and you're aware of what's happening. Because I think a lot of us think like you're just knocked out.
No,
you're just following a thing wandering in your face.
Nope. That's incorrect. That's the Hollywood version of this.
Why did it become that way? Why did people think that's what happens? Or why did Hollywood start to do it that way?
There was an original hypnotist. He was actually a doctor by the name of Mesmer, where we get the word mesmerize from. And he started using what he called magnetism. So would say that things were he would make them magnets, or he could move blood or move the energy through your body with these magnets. And then he started saying he could magnetize trees. And so people would go and touch the tree and they would have an experience. So he's the one that actually started to create this kind of facade around hypnosis, but he was playing with the idea of suggestion. He was playing with this idea, our beliefs are powerful, right? And so we had the placebo effect. And if you truly believe that touching, drinking this bottle of water is going to be the healing water for you,
then it will.
Your mind is so powerful that it will start to change things inside of you. Isn't that?
Wow.
It's amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah. So it all started from him.
And then it's been kind of used. There's a book about this. Svengali is, I think, the name of it, where this old man wooed this woman, and it was about using hypnosis or putting her in this trance. And so there's always been these stories of people making people do these things against their will. So that's where we've gotten this from. And there's been a lot of stage hypnotists and entertainers along the way that have just taken that whole narrative forward. And there's many of us that wish that hypnosis had a different name so that we could put it under something completely different. But it's also about reclaiming what it really is and allowing it to truly be a helpful tool for people.
So I've heard it as a tool for cigarettes, to stop smoking cigarettes. So how does that retrain your brain to not crave nicotine?
Yeah, so a lot of people actually have, not everyone, but many people do have a story related to smoking that relates back to an identity. So they started at a young age. And so it was the identity of being cool, or identity of being an outsider, of not fitting in with their polished family. And so we really approached that identity within hypnosis and began to challenge it. Is that who you really want to be now? And of course, you have to want to stop smoking for it to work. So that's the other piece of it. Do you really want this? Do you desire this outcome? And then another way that people use smoking is obviously as a coping mechanism for stress.
Yeah.
And so that's another way we want to approach it. And so we're looking at how do we replace the stress coping mechanism? If it was smoking, then what else could it be? What do we replace that with?
Would that work for eating disorders as well?
Yes, it can work for emotional eating. I don't work with eating disorders personally, but there are certainly people that do. I also don't do smoking sessions. It's just not my thing. I think everybody has their specialty. That's just not mine.
What's yours?
I am all about helping people just take back the power of their voice, the power of their worth. That's really where I am. I want you to reestablish who you are and own your worth.
I love that. Yeah. That's everything that we need to do. Without naming names, can you share a client success story that really stands out to you that, was pivotal, your aha moment in your career doing this?
I have a few, but one of the women that I think I've really enjoyed working with, we probably worked together off and on for a year. But she had a lot of family trauma. Her mother was, I would say, undiagnosed mentally ill. Her mother had committed suicide. And so she had a lot of things that happened to her as a child that she really had to move through. And she'd worked with a therapist for the majority of her life. And she decided to try hypnosis, to just try something different.
Right.
And she just really responded very well to it. She was able to move through it very quickly and easily. And it made sense to her, and it helped her take back her voice. It helped her to be able to be a better mother. Like, she felt because her mother wasn't a great mother for her, she was able to then relearn or trust herself as a mother. And then she was able to just upscale. She was able to move forward in her career. She is now second person in command to the CEO. So she said multiple times that it has been life-changing for her. And that's the people that I would say I work with on a more of a program basis where they are doing multiple sessions. They have said that it is the game changer. It has been life-changing for them.
Is it something that has to be ongoing? Like, how many sessions is enough? Or can people be on like a maintenance plan?
Yeah, I would say a minimum of 6 sessions I'd like to do. I think 12 is really good. And so I like to work with people anywhere from 3 months to a year, depending on what works for their budget. And then
how long is a session? Like an hour? An hour. Okay. And would you say this works well, like hand in hand with therapy, like just seeing a counselor also?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's probably good if someone is diagnosed and that you want your hypnotist to be able to speak with your therapist so that they can have a plan together and collaborate. So that's really important. But yes, I do think that having people work together is really important. And once you feel like I always tell people, like, I'm not here to be the person you go to for the rest of your life, but use me as like someone to top up your champagne. When you feel like you're at a healthy place where you can go on with your life and you just are maybe struggling through something that happened and you want to come in and have a session with me, let me top up your champagne. Let me top up your self-worth.
You'll teach them the tools that they can use later in life to deal with it. And then maybe they will need a little topper off, maybe a couple times a year.
Yeah, exactly. That's usually what happens.
Yeah, I love that. Now, what are some of your go-to practices for you for staying aligned and grounded and in your high frequency?
Yeah.
Do you have any specific techniques you recommend?
I do start the morning off usually either listening to a guided hypnosis myself or just in my own self-hypnosis. I listen to the same song. Like, I really have a very conditioned way of doing it. So I listen to the same song.
So like a good routine. Okay.
And I do think that's important. So whether it is a specific song that you like to listen to that's soft and makes you feel light, listening to that, closing your eyes, imagining yourself doing well or seeing the day going well, I think that's really important. I also go on long walks mostly every morning or do some kind of movement in the morning because with our sacral energy, we need to get that kind of like battery going and of course we get the endorphins from that too. And so that's all very helpful.
Okay. I'm going to try all that. I haven't even thought about listening to a song, but I like that idea. Even if it's a peppy song to get my day started.
Absolutely. Train your brain.
Yeah. So how can everyone get in touch with you?
I think the best way to get in touch with me is to just find me on my latest website. So everything's been moving to my name. So it's under Nicole-Hernandez.com.
I'll put all of that in the show notes so that everyone can find you and learn more.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Like I said, I'm so fascinated by this and I hope everyone else is. So thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing your insights and your wisdom and your energy with us today, because I know our listeners will walk away with a fresh perspective on what true happiness could look like or feel like if they just open their mind.
Thank you, Ali.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Gray Minds Think Alike. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the show, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Until next time, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. If there's someone that you want to hear from on this podcast, please feel free to send me an email. Or if you would like to be a guest, please reach out at ali@graysonschoice.org. If you would like to continue to hear our podcast, please consider donating at graysonschoice.org. Any amount helps to fund our mission to help protect our children.